I looked at dozens of potential locations for an all-woman rock and metal music festival, and I think I finally found the perfect home. Hello, all my beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of Valkyrie Sessions here on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're tuning in. We appreciate you. I want to thank everyone who's been here since episode one, or if you're just joining us here for the first time. We gotten a lot of great feedback from some of the topics we had on last week's show, and looking to talk about a lot more great stuff going on in rock and metal music. And we're going to be talking about a show I was recently at today. We're going to be doing another album review. We got a lot of things to get into. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just jump straight into this here. And I want to start off by talking about, I know last episode our band of the week was Entheos, and I talked about them a little bit, how great Cheney Crab is and how great they are as a band. But I also said how I was going to be seeing the show of them and Ginger later that night. I think I recorded on the 5th, and so I want to talk about this show because it was one of the best shows I've ever been at live. This was the Ace of Spades, Sunday the 5th, and Entheos opened. Cheney's incredible live. I will say, unfortunately, it did feel a little bit like the audio mix was a little bit off, as the drums seemed a little bit too loud and kind of drowned out her vocals at times. But still, it was an incredible opening set from just a kick-ass local band. I mentioned, out of Santa Cruz. There's a few people in the mosh pit out there too, and a lot of people showed up early for him, so that was great. Crystal Lake played right after that. I got to hear a little bit of their stuff, and they sounded really solid too. And then, of course, the headliner was Ginger. And I've seen them twice. I mentioned, I think last week, I wasn't sure if I've seen them once or twice, but I've seen them. They opened for Disturbed and Breaking Benjamin one time, and then I saw them at Aftershock. This was the third time, and getting to hear a full 16 song set from them for the first time was just absolutely fantastic, and what a great experience. In terms of some of my favorite songs, I mean, I Speak Astronomy is always fantastic live. I always love hearing that. But this was the first time I've heard Perennial live. The mosh pit was, up and going for that. That was really great. Also, Green Serpent was amazing off of their new album, Duel. Just a 10 out of 10 show for sure. I will likely review Duel on here sometime within the next 3 weeks. Next week, I am going to be reviewing another current album, actually, that just came out this week, but I haven't got a chance to listen to it yet, from Eva Under Fire. But in probably a couple of weeks here, I'd say episode 5, I'll likely review Duel that came out last year, give my thoughts on the full album after hearing part of it live. But man, what a great show this was. Anybody that gets a chance, if it's coming to your city, I highly recommend spending 40 or 50 bucks and going out and listening to these groups, because you will not regret it for sure. Although I also feel like that by the time this might come out, that their tour might be over. I think California might have been towards the end of their tour. But if it is still going on, no, it is still going on, because I know that I mentioned last week, Entheos is actually going to be with Crystal Lake for a few shows when Ginger is out at some festivals. So they will be coming more east. They just obviously won't be in California. So yes, if you have the time, you have a few extra bucks to spare, go listen to this show. You will not regret it. With that being said, I kind of want to jump forward here and talk about something that I think is really important and is really cool, and is kind of at the center of what we're trying to do here with Valkyrie Fest, and creating, an all-woman focused rock and metal music festival. It's actually happening on a little bit of a smaller scale already, because it was announced earlier this week at Louder Than Life in Kentucky in September. There will be an all-female Stage 3 lineup for Saturday, the 19th of September. It's going to be headlined by Hailstorm. I don't have the full speech up, but I know that Lizzie gave a great speech earlier this week. Maybe I'll talk about that next week on the show so that I'm more kind of in tune with it. I only kind of caught a glimpse of it earlier this week. But anyways, they will be headlining in this moment, led by Maria Brink. They'll be playing on that stage too. Lindsey Sterling, Orianthe, Icon for Hire, Cami Cahoe, and Diamante. That's a great lineup right there, and that's super exciting. Lizzie said to Revolver Magazine about this, quote, "We're a lot louder together," and I think that makes a hell of a statement. The camaraderie is what it's all about for me. It's a different energy when there's so many of us in one place. I'm most excited about being surrounded by my sisters and being supportive of each other, but also looking out into the audience, seeing all of the women and feeling that inspiration come full circle. So this is just really great. And I'm glad that, we're seeing this happen at least a little bit on, on a smaller picture of it all being at one stage at a festival. That's, I think, a giant step in the right direction for what I would love to see. And it's great to see, there'll be representation in that sense at the festival. And you'll get to hear a great kick-ass lineup there too if you stay at stage 3 at Louder Than Life all day on Saturday, September 19th. So great stuff there. Um, with that said, let's go ahead and jump forward, and I want to talk about each week I kind of want to bring up a different topic in regards to what I'm looking to help try to create here with Valkyrie Fest, if when it becomes a thing. And I mainly just want to go over some goals I have in general. Some of them will be about this podcast and just kind of creating just the overall brand. Some of them will be long-term goals, and it will, have to do more so with the festival in general. I also want to get into some potential locations that I have in mind for Valkyrie Fest. Next week, I'll get more into potential dates for it, prices for general admission, VIP, that I kind of been have been thinking about and have in mind. So with that being said, let me start off with some short-term goals I have here. So firstly, short-term goals. Number one, get people to learn about the brand and what I'm trying to do and create. Whether that's through this podcast, through social media. I'm active on Instagram. I think I mentioned before I do want to post more on X, create a Reddit at some point and be active on there. But I think, getting people to learn about the brand and what I'm trying to do and marketing out this podcast is a great start to that. And, I'm sure if you're following the YouTube, you see now that the album reviews, well, they're in the podcast. They're also, I'm posting them separately too. So for anybody that wants to, at any point just want to listen to the album reviews, they're out there. But also, we're going to do the same thing with interviews too. But the full podcast is here as well. We have shorts for people that people can go check out. And then we'll also have some content on the side over on Instagram. I'll actually have more on that next week on something I'm working on as I'm recording the show, actually. Going along with that, expanding a social media footprint. I know I just mentioned it a moment ago, but posting more on X, creating a Reddit, kind of designing some more graphics out there that can be posted. Again, I know that takes a lot of time, and I'm trying to get better at that. I don't have time for it all. Ideally, in the future, I would likely like to hire someone to be a graphic designer or a social media content manager. If anybody's interested in that, please don't hesitate to hit me up in the comments, or again, you can follow at Valkyrie Fest on Instagram, and you can shoot me a DM there too if you're interested in that. I'm always looking to try to grow this thing, so that's something that is definitely in my mind too. Goal number 3, I've obviously been doing the album reviews on here, but get some singers, bands in general, band managers, people in the rock and metal scene, including media, on for interviews. I'd love to do this. Ideally starting around maybe episode 6 or something like that. This is episode 3 here. So, if I could get that done within the next 3-4 weeks. And, those interviews obviously can replace album reviews now and then. I'd like kind of a healthy mix of both on the channel, each week. I think that'd be great. So I definitely plan on starting to reach out this week to more people for sure. And, getting some interviews on here so that way, you get to kind of hear from these people a little bit more too. And, ideally, ask some questions that maybe these people haven't, heard or seen before. So that's a goal too. And then number 4, just create a platform for emerging female artists. Each week I'm doing Band of the Week on here. And the goal of that is for smaller or medium size bands in terms of their growth and popularity, to kind of try to give them a voice and kind of try to get, more people knowing about them, maybe discovering them out there. So I'm taking some time to, at times, even discover them myself, and then kind of bring you my thoughts of them. And I want that to kind of be a way to create a platform for these bands too, so that they have a chance to grow and excel more. So those are my short-term goals. Getting into long-term goals that definitely have to do more so with the festival community in general. Firstly, establish Valkyrie Fest as the premier woman-focused rock and metal festival in North America. I mentioned back in episode one that one of my big motivations behind this, so the fact that there are so many great rock and metal bands out there, a lot of them that are male-centered and male-focused, and I've had even people this week reach out and say, oh, why does that matter? If they're kicking ass and they're drawing a crowd, why does it matter what gender they are? And my point is, I agree. It's just that we don't. I mentioned the numbers last week. How most of the time it's 85 to 90% of bands at these festivals are pretty much all male. We don't have there's not a pathway necessarily for some of these bands that do kick ass and that have earned their place there to get on that stage, because there only is a certain number of spots. And I kind of think that this is a way to promote more of these bands, but also, this is something that would be very special, that could be a yearly thing that people would definitely want to come to, because it's a niche thing, and we don't really have that anywhere else, as far as I know, in North America, and I don't even believe really much around the world. So that's a goal for mine on the long term. Delivering a high quality, specialized and curated festival experience. Obviously the great part about going to festivals is you don't just have the music. There's obviously there's the food and drinks with the bars there and stuff, but also you have the merch stands there. You also have all of the other tents for some other outside companies to come in, or even nonprofits or just great groups to come out and be at those festivals and kind of show what they're all about too. Fuck Cancer is one that comes to mind immediately that I've seen out at Aftershock, and I know that there's plenty of others. And I think that doing that, but also just kind of making things easy for the listener to want to come out and get to see these bands and try to create the best experience possible for those people. Number three, just this is kind of just one in general: build a loyal, returning community. I appreciate everybody so far that supported this and that has watched the podcast. Again, my whole thing is I want to get more people involved, and I'm going to be having more fan polls. I'm going to be having more stuff out there on Instagram people can engage with, and I want you guys to be able to give your input on certain things with what a festival could look like, or even things in terms of just the metal and rock community. That can also, help me with what I'm doing content wise, but also what I'm looking to do in the long term when it comes to the festival. And I think building a loyal returning community is a great part in helping that be a thing, because then you have the same people coming back and they're obviously interested and engaged with the product. And I apologize if this is sounding like it's looking, super business focused, but obviously you have to kind of look at it from that perspective when you're trying to build something like this. Number four, develop Valkyrie Fest into a year-round media and community brand. I'm already trying to do that right now by, this podcast and what I'm doing. But, I think just being more consistent with that. And, the great thing with a lot of festivals is they're continuously making posts year-round with, photos or videos from, the year before or what just happened. And that keeps people engaged and, wanting to see, oh, hey, I was there. This is really cool to see again. And hey, now I'm going to want to come back next year, And they also, obviously whenever the lineup comes out and there's always, those teasers and stuff, it makes it more of a year round thing. And I think that's great. And that's what I'd love to do here too. Create industry partnerships supporting women in heavy music. I think that's a big one too. And then become a launching pad for emerging female artists. My goal right now is I'm trying to create a platform in terms of talking about them, or eventually having them on for interviews and whatnot. If the festival becomes a thing and they get to play there, hopefully that gets people to not just hear how they got to become a band, and the specifics about their music and what it's about and whatnot, but also then they get to hear it obviously live for maybe for some people maybe the first time, and then from there they can grow. So that's pretty much my thoughts right there. Those are some short long-term goals I have for Valkyrie Sessions, Valkyrie Fest in general, and what I'm looking to try to build. With that being said, let me go ahead and just perfectly transition that into some location ideas. So I'm not going to share some of the graphics, because I have some ideas for a couple of these locations in terms of where stages and certain things can be. But I'm going to mention I'm going to mention four of them right now. I have a lot more than that, but the four that are definitely on my radar, I'll leave my favorite for last. So let me start off with John Hunt Park in Huntsville, Alabama. Um, there's some great parking that's there already. It's away from neighborhoods. It's hosted multi-day festivals already. I should mention just the criteria and the factors that are important when I was looking at these locations before I really do dive deeper in them. Firstly, capacity and infrastructure has to be relatively away from neighborhoods to adhere with noise regulations. Venue accessibility, is it close enough to hotels? Is transit easy? Is, space for parking? What is the weather and terrain like at a certain time of the year? And I also obviously considered all the other major music festivals that happen in this country and, uh, you know, trying to potentially have them at a different spot than some of those. At least in, the rock and metal festivals, trying to be a little bit maybe separate from some of those so that, it gives people a different place to travel to and whatnot. So obviously some of the biggest major festivals in this country, in any genre: Coachella down in Indio, California, Lollapalooza in Chicago, Illinois, Bonnaroo in Manchester, Tennessee, EDC with EDM in Vegas. New Orleans has the Jazz and Heritage Festival. For metal, of course, we have Louisville for Louder Than Life. And then, of course, Aftershock, Sacramento, California. And then Daytona Beach, Florida for Welcome to Rockville. Mansfield, Ohio for Incarceration. Sonic Temple in Columbus, Ohio. You have When We Were Young in Vegas, and then you have some other festivals: Furnace Fest in Birmingham, Alabama, Sick New World in Fort Worth, Texas, Rocklahoma in Pryor, Oklahoma. Thing to note: most of these are at festival grounds, or some of them are used for state fairs, or at big parks with lots of open grass space. Also, some at speedways and raceways. So those are all things I factored in and kind of considered. So yeah, going back to the first one, John Hunt Park in Huntsville, Alabama. Mentioned the parking and it being a little bit away from neighborhoods, but also it's hosted multi-day festivals already. South Star Music Festival and Tangled String Music and Arts Festival. Plus, right now there are upgrades being made to the festival grounds to improve future experiences there. It had 17,000 attendees, I believe, at South Star Music Festival, but there's also enough space there for 20 to 25,000 per day, likely more after they expand it with that multi-million dollar upgrade they're making. C3 Presents puts on South Star. They've also done Lollapalooza, Austin City Limits, and Bonnaroo. I also know that one of the reasons they're making upgrades too is that some of the grounds after the first day kind of got overly trampled on, or it just the ground was nowhere near what it could or should be. So yeah, they're definitely making some expansions and some upgrades there, but it looks like a great spot from overhead. Kind of looked at a little bit of the of the street view, and I've looked at some photos of it too. So yeah, that's definitely the first one I have on my list. Number two, speaking of Bonnaroo, how about Great Stage Park in Manchester, Tennessee? The Bonnaroo Music and Arts Festival is one of the largest music festivals in the nation. This year hosted Skrillex, The Strokes, Turnstile, Youngblood, Teddy Swims, and many others. 2-day tickets right now, or 2-day tickets were right around $250. Not only has it hosted Bonnaroo, but back in 2019, it hosted the Exit 111 Festival, which had Leonard Skinner, Def Leppard, Guns N' Roses, ZZ Top, and plenty of other rock and metal acts. Tens of thousands showed up to that, which was a 3-day festival. Obviously, that already has, some infrastructure in place from the other festivals that are there. So I think that's a great spot too. Tennessee doesn't have it's such a great place for music, and as far as I know, there's not really a centralized major rock or metal festival there. Um, and while we're at it, let's also throw in Great Park in Irvine. That should be in the mix too. We mentioned last week on the show how Olivia Rodrigo is going to be, hosting and putting on Daisy Chain Fields there. And that space, could keep the all-woman trend alive potentially. And if you're wondering, oh, who's putting that on? You guessed it, C3 Presents. So whether it's them, Danny Wimmer Presents, or another large promoter, this would be perfect too. So I think that's a great space. However, one that I happen to like a lot, And this has never hosted a music festival as far as I know. So obviously, when it hasn't hosted a festival, you have to kind of go through the city, see if you can get the permits for it, and so it's a little bit more complicated than if you already are at a place that has hosted that before. But just looking overhead at it, looking at the general area, knowing that nothing's really been there, I found a nice place in just north of Indianapolis, Indiana. It's a place called Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park. It's in Brownsburg, Indiana, about 10 miles outside of the city. It hosts drag racing, NASCAR Truck Series events, etc. It has a capacity of 30,000 for those events. I think from the outside, as I mentioned, even though it's never hosted a music festival, it certainly looks like it can. There's space, it looks like, for three stages to be there. And again, I'll just mention the numbers for year one. I think a reasonable number of attendees to expect for Valkyrie Fest could be, 13 to 15,000 people per day. You might get more than that for sure. I mean, that'd be awesome if you get more than that. But that's kind of at least what I've had in my mind and kind of what I've been thinking of. And, this is just a great place, I think, to start it out too. So those are four locations right there: Alabama, Indiana, Tennessee, California. So those are kind of, really all separate kind of around the country. And those are just places that I have on my very long list of locations, but some that are definitely towards the top right now. So, with that being said, which do you like the most? Are there any that you feel like that should be added? Let me know in the comments below. I really would appreciate your input and thoughts on that. But those are some of the locations that I have in mind. All right, and with that being said, let's go ahead now and move on to our album review for the week. So, this week, our album review is going to be the Pretty Wild Zero Point Genesis. I've talked about this group before on the show, and how I was going to potentially at some point put them as a band of the week, but I decided to make it a little bit more special, actually give them a full album review here since this is their first full album. I initially heard of this band from the collab that they did with Deadlands on Kundalini and thought that they had great voices and meshed very well with Casey. This group has grown a ton, by the way, in just such a short time. 358,000 monthly listeners on YouTube Music, 658,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. These are two sisters based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, Jill and Jules Wild. I watched a couple of interviews with them on Metal Queens podcast and Heartbeat magazine, and I know that they're from Indiana originally, but moved out to Nevada after their mom passed away. The band was formed in 2022. They were actually initially country rock. I actually listened to one of their old songs, Betting on Us, and then I listened to Sleepwalker, which is their most popular song that came out a couple years ago. And oh my God, night and day, obviously. Just absolutely crazy. Listening to Sleepwalker, I know that we're going to get some interesting breakdowns, some rap. Jill, I believe, does all the rap. I also know that she helped teach Jules how to scream. Jill also does some form of MMA and gymnastics too, and she's freaking ripped as well. What can't this girl do? Jules is great too, but Jill is insane. So definitely excited to get into this album. Their first one came out in November of last year. Just a quick note on other members of the band. On guitar is Mason Wright. Also does a lot of their social media, I believe. Michael Owens on bass, and then Brandon Ackerman on drums. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into each song here. We're going to start off with Paradox, the first song on the album. Right away in this song, we've got screams and heavy bass, and then we go to cleans with, disassociating. But it's kind of like a creepy vibe, almost like baby talk there. Definitely layers of both the heavy and the cleans, even 30 seconds into the song. I really love the pre-chorus build-up here. I also like how the rap from Jill in the song perfectly flows back into some of those higher screams and then effortlessly back into the pre-chorus. The Summon the Reckoning breakdown is great as well. I love the guitars here. I think that it's from the synth, but you can also hear a bit of melodic sound in the background here as well. I think a big note is disassociating, slipping back into the void, and then split by duality's pole. I think it's just about trying to escape from a dark place, but finding yourself at times just getting sucked back down, trying to almost rebuild oneself. And that kind of makes sense when you consider their mom passing away. Plus, who knows what else they've had to deal with in their lives too. So a great opening track here, definitely. And that leads to the title track on the album, 0 Point Genesis. Right away in this one, we've got violin in the beginning, which is certainly unique, and it continues throughout the song. I really enjoy the clean vocals here too. We've now had Void mentioned in both of the first two songs. Just a couple of parts of this song. Looked up to the stars from the back of a hearse, let the ash blow away, shed this black hole universe. You have Forged by the Darkness, Spark New Genesis. Really love the chorus here. Another part of the song, Destroyed, then rejoined at the 0 Point. Again, I think this is just kind of confronting past darkness and demons, finally creating a new life for oneself. I also have to say, just coming from a country rock start with the band and then being able to be this solid with both harsh growls and screams and then those higher fry screams is pretty impressive. The one thing I'll also say too, just noticing it, is their voices between Jill and Jules. At times they're so similar, it's kind of hard to distinguish. I believe Jill is a bit higher and Jules is a bit lower, which would make sense with the influences too, because I believe Jill is more into hyper pop, while Jules is more into modern metal and some classical music. And speaking of classical, one final note with the song, I love the theatrical classical nature of the instrumental at the end of the song. So definitely a great track here too. And that leads us on to Living Dead. This gives more of a pop vibe with some dark undertones. The chorus is definitely a bop here. Even there in the chorus, we get some screams from high to low with the Living Dead. At the second chorus, the song kind of calms back down a bit. We have some clean vocals. There's also another breakdown in the song at "In Death We Wake." Another a big quote of this song: two opposite halves fit together perfectly. We fail to see what's underneath, a reptile with sharp teeth. I just get the sense that it's about, we try to show that everything's okay to everyone else and live life, exist in society, but deep down we kind of all have struggles and things aren't always as good as they seem. So in a way, trying to exist within societal expectations a bit. And another quote to go along with that, I see the cracks in your smiles and they're opening. It's the mask of false empathy. We're essentially zombies going about our everyday lives. So that's kind of the sense I get from this one. We go on to what is creatively the song of the album for me so far, and it's up there for one of the most creative in all of their discography so far, and that's Button Eyes. It's theatrical, whimsical, spooky. I absolutely love it. I could see this even being in like a Tim Burton film. I'm a huge Ice Nine Kills fan myself, so I definitely got some vibes from that here too. This song's freaking incredible. Looking back to last week, I mentioned in Spell on You by Pretty Reckless and their new album Dear God, that had to do with being manipulated and used kind of like a doll. I get the same vibes here, a little bit of being controlled in many ways in life. Part of this song, Stitch is tearing, severed beyond repairing. I'm done hanging by threads that you keep breaking. I'm ripping out these button eyes. Kind of like I'm done getting used and I'm standing up for myself finally. And also one other thing to note, that the scissor sound followed by cut out the parasite in the breakdown is incredible too. It's the best breakdown yet. Leads to one of the most angry choruses yet too. Just a great song for self-empowerment here as well. This is an incredible song. I love this 10 out of 10 song for sure. That brings us on to Priestess. This is another song where we start right away super heavy with harsh screams and heavy bass. Definitely fast-paced in this one. This continues really what the theme of the album's been so far, which is just escaping darkness and just self-empowerment. One thing to note is that this is the longest and heaviest breakdown on the song, from when she says, "We chained her worth to our need," to "God is dead and we have killed her." So a longer breakdown here, but just continues kind of with the theme of the album. Then we go to, I mentioned how creatively Button Eyes might be the song of the album. Musically overall, this is my favorite song on the album. And that's Omens. Love this song so much. I think I love this more than Sleepwalker, Mania, which is another song they've done, and then obviously Button Eyes. But I mean, from the heavy intro with the bass and the drums to the clean vocals, the super catchy chorus, the breakdown. This breakdown's a close second right behind Button Eyes as we go from a rap beat to the watch me and then the Siri proceed to the root, which is pretty cool. Kind of made me laugh the first time I heard it, but then it was just like, oh, this meshes really well, and it was perfect listening after. The heavy scream on the dead end and then back to the cleans again is almost effortless too. I love the extension too of when she says the omens, like it's not omens, it's omens bleed. It's kind of cool. And bleeds even extended out a little bit too. I also like that the second time they say nowhere to turn now, the turn is a much higher note. The end of the song with the crazy scream on bleed, followed by just a super low scream of these omens bleed, just screams pure anger here. And again, we just keep talking in the song about, the dead ends. That could all just be kind of about a toxic loops that comes from just, kind of being a fake person and trying to escape it. Kind of an anthem to just be who you are and just trust yourself a bit. Really, really love this song. This is great. Um, we go from there to the trial. The trial again. We go theatrical here, kind of like we did back in Button Eyes and towards the end of Zero Point Genesis. I get the sense that this is just about dealing with judgment from the outside world and people who try to manipulate you. It also kind of puts the mirror back at those people when saying they're hiding behind false prophecies, and the part of the song where she says, "I curse you to suffer the pain of all those you've abused." We get more speed rap here from Jill. She's really good at that, by the way. That's one of the most impressive parts about her as a performer. The theatrical part comes back again in the bridge, building up to "Let's Play." The influences from theater, opera, and I also know they've spoken about their influences when it comes to myths and legends. And it's funny, the "Let's Play" here, the baby talk back in Paradox, and the doll talk from Button Eyes could almost all be kind of like from horror, just adding those spooky, creepy vibes in there. Just love all those little elements and layers they keep throwing in. Really cool. From there, we go on to Half Alive. The intro here is interesting because it's so calm, but then we almost have like an alt metal, new metal vibe in this. I guess we'll call this new metalcore. It just reminds me of something I would have heard from like 2002, 2003. Kind of a cool start here. The light, distant feeling of Jill in the background with the lyrics definitely kind of gives more of like a liminal, dark, emotional vibe here. And I think that that's kind of the point with the meaning too. To go from when they say "I'm rotting from the inside" at the end of the chorus to "my world of grays," just get a sense here of we're kind of battling depression, some trauma, some darkness here, but also, could potentially, be coming out of it on the other side, mentioning, bleeding velvet petals and butterflies, internalizing pain, kind of dealing with the darkness of it all. But when you've come out on the other side, there could be some beauty there. I think that's kind of the sense of Half Alive, right? The battle between colorful beauty and life, but also darkness, tragedy, and trauma, and kind of just, the balance of that. This is their most mellow song so far on the album. It's also very dark, but it's beautiful. I really like it. Um, Speaking of dark and in terms of at least lyrically, we go on to Afterlife. This features Magnolia Park as well. Joshua Roberts of Magnolia Park, the mix of him along with, I believe it's Jill, their voices work really well here. They complement each other. We have the speed rap again from Jill from "Everything We Ever Did Comes Rushing Back In" to "If It Didn't End at the Reaper's Scythe." God, I'm gonna mispronounce that. I apologize, but to me though, that's basically just saying, love is a connection so powerful that it can carry beyond the grave. And the reason I say that, to me, this is almost like the saddest, darkest song on the album is if you really kind of just take collectively what we've heard so far on this album, you dive deep into these songs. And again, I don't want to pretend like I have all the answers here, but this band formed after their mom passed away. You think of the themes of the album: trying to step out of a shell, become oneself, living with darkness and grief, now about this love. I'm sure it's not all that this is about, but this could at least be partially about their mom, which is just absolutely heartbreaking to me. I'm not sure how many others have passed or the other darkness they've had to deal with in their lives, but I imagine their mom had a major influence on them and their music, but they've also had to find themselves a lot since her passing, and this music is kind of helping them do so a bit. And that's the great thing about music, is it can help us carry us out of really dark times of our lives and give us some strength. And they're doing a great job of that here, but I definitely feel for these girls for sure. From there, we go on to Infrared. We have kind of electronic to start this song with the synths, and it gives a pop vibe before picking up about 20 seconds in. To be honest, probably for me, the least favorite on this album, just for me musically. I don't know. It just feels like there are some things on this that are a little out of place. The pop and then the metal breakdown don't necessarily go together here, in my opinion. I kind of get two things here, just from the sense of the lyrics, versus the sense of seeing through people, and their fakeness a bit. And the second is just feeling kind of like a part of you dying when things get bleak, but also being able to grow out of it as a person. So that's the sense I get here. And that leads to the final song on the album, Persephone. I was kind of curious, the name of the album, but also, figured with what I was saying earlier with them being into myths and legends that this had to do at least somewhat, had to be somewhat about a character. And I looked it up and it was. This is the goddess of spring, the queen of the underworld, but more importantly, she also symbolizes a changing of seasons. A lot of this album has to do with the changing of a person throughout chaos and darkness. And we get that right away with the first lyric, as I become myself, you won't recognize me. The lyrics here also feel very up close and personal. And I think this is just about, Jill and Jules' growth and transformation as people over time. Another part of this song, you claimed an abduction, but I stepped through the gate. An escape, if you will, almost to say, as if to say it's my time to shine. Another part, born from my demise, reclaim what was mine. Again, just the overall theme of kind of trying to find oneself. So, a great finish to the album. My overall thoughts just on the album, when you factor in the overall theme of it, how everything, tied so well into each song, plus the fact this is their first album and, that they've switched genres within the past 4 years. I'm giving this an 8.25 out of 10. I give it just a little bit higher than Dear God. I really enjoyed this. There are two incredible songs on here, in my opinion, in Button Eyes and Omens. Any Given Day either could be a favorite of mine. Afterlife, I think, is also super underrated on here. Very much enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from them in the future. Can't wait to eventually see them live. I unfortunately won't be able to see them at Aftershock this year live, as I have something else going on the day that they're playing there. But these two girls are super talented, and they've got nothing but a great future ahead of them when it comes to what they're capable of. So great stuff here for sure. And yeah, we'll keep our ear out and our eyes out for more to come. With that being said, let's go ahead now and head on to the last part of the show here and talk about our band of the week. And our band of the week is New Year's Day, out of Anaheim, California. Started in 2005. They're led by vocalist Ash Costello, Nikki Misery on lead, and Jeremy Valentine on rhythm guitar, Brandon Wolf on bass, and Tommy Rockoff on drums. About 166,000 monthly listeners on YouTube Music, 175,000 on Spotify. 4 albums, including My Dear in 2007, Victim to Villain in 2013, Unbreakable in 2019, and Half Black Heart in 2024. Ash has a super powerful voice. She's melodic, but can definitely do some raw screams at times. It's rare, but it's actually funny because the first time I heard of her and the band was when she did a song that basically she screamed in the whole time. And I've mentioned before, I'm a little bit of a WWE fan, and it was Rhea Ripley's theme in Brutality, like her first theme when she was in NXT. They actually, I believe, played that live at WrestleMania one year too, which was pretty awesome. So this band just rocks. I love their style. Their most popular song, Angel Eyes, featuring Chris Motionless of Motionless in White. In my opinion, they have 2 really good songs that are underrated. Hurts Like Hell, which was a single that came out in 2022. That song freaking rocks. And then I'd also say the title track of their 2019 album, Unbreakable. I love the heavy riffs in that, the drums, the harsh vocals, the melodies, and the overall empowering vibe of it. A really solid band. I'm out in California. I promise I will do more bands outside of the state. I know I did one from Santa Cruz and Entheos last week, and then New Year's Day, this week. But we will have more outside of California. It just happens to be that they're from there. But New Year's Day is great. Ash Costello is fantastic, and a band that I definitely recommend you check out for sure. Well, that is going to do it for episode number 3 of Valkyrie Sessions. Again, I really appreciate everyone for tuning in. I know that we're starting to get some more subscribers on here, and I appreciate all of you that have tuned in ever since episode 1. Even if this is the first time that you've tuned in, I appreciate, if you subscribe, leave me a comment, shoot me a DM on Valkyrie Fest. Tell me, your thoughts on any of the things we talked about today, from the festival locations to the album review to anything else. And if you you have, anything you'd like me to talk about in the future, please let me know. I'm only, a DM away. So we'll see you back here next week for episode 4. Until then, hope everyone has a great week. Keep rocking on. Peace out. We'll see you next time, y'all.